Welcome to the Happy Mama Movement podcast. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz, mama, journalist, coach, and founder of Mama Rising. This podcast is a space of community and collaboration. We gather stories of matrescence, motherhood, womanhood, and change told by our Mama Rising coaches and mothers around the globe, in the knowing that through our stories, we can begin to heal and change the way the world sees, values, and supports mothers everywhere. So, welcome to the Happy Mama Movement. Welcome back, everybody. Today on the podcast, we speak with one of my beautiful friends and incredible writers, Amy Molloy. As you'll hear in a few moments, this conversation is both about our own children and this incredible generation that we have been gifted with, how so many of them are deep thinkers, so many of them challenge us to be really present and to bring our very best selves to this role of mother, and how we also, as the mothers of these children, have such a responsibility to work on ourselves, look at our own trauma, our red thread, our experiences, so that we can regulate ourselves while supporting and regulating them. This conversation was really mind-blowing. It made me reflect on whether there is this beautiful soul connection between our children, and whether that is something you believe or not, as you'll hear in this conversation with Amy. What her new book, Wise Child by Hay House, is really asking us all to think about is our role in these children's lives and how we can show up for them while healing and supporting ourselves. I know you are going to get so much out of this beautiful conversation. Enjoy. My beautiful friend, Amy, thank you for joining this podcast and also writing this incredibly brave and very needed book.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I've been so excited to chat to you.
I know. I want to start by asking you about what led you to this book. How did this book birth itself?
Oh, wow. It was a long time coming, to be honest. And even a few years ago, I would never have said this was my next book. Like, this was not in the plan at all to write a past life parenting book. There would have been much easier and safer books to write, for sure, that would probably have fitted into my career plan a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But it really began significantly after my little boy, my middle child, was born, which was 6 years ago now. And my first child, my daughter, she was just an easy breezy baby, just joyful, woke up every day with a smile on her face. Really that baby that you just walk around thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just nailing motherhood. And then my little boy was born 18 months later. And from the moment he arrived, I would just say to my husband, he just doesn't seem to want to be here. He was just unhappy for no reason, just that mother's intuition of just more than just being gassy or uncomfortable or just a newborn, just kept saying he just doesn't want to be with us. He doesn't want to be here. And I couldn't fathom how to parent him. And, being one of the typical A-type, I'm going to fix it mums, I just threw myself into how can I make this baby happy? What am I doing wrong? All of those thoughts that we all have. And tried everything. And he had allergies. He had this persistent cough that we just couldn't shake, that the doctors didn't know what it was. Not a great sleeper, all of the things, but more so just that feeling that I couldn't make him settled and happy here. And I've had a spiritual healer in England for a long time. My dad was paralyzed from cancer when I was 17, and he was the ultimate skeptic, this real West End London guy, and no religious background at all. But during his chemo, just out of desperation, he started having Reiki, which led him to spiritual healing. And then he had this beautiful spiritual like epiphany and started studying Buddhism and Hinduism. Anyway, he introduced me to a healer in my early 20s when my first husband died. So I'd started seeing Yvonne on and off for a number of years. And when my little boy, I think he was maybe 2, just after 2, we flew back from Australia to England to visit my family. I stepped off a long-haul flight with this, unhappy toddler and my oldest daughter. And I just walked into Yvonne and just sat on her couch and cried and said, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to raise this child. Like, I don't know how to mother him. Nothing's working. And during that healing, we moved into a past life regression where I was shown him hundreds and hundreds of years ago as a healer in this ancient land in a past life that he'd had. And she told me that he hadn't been reincarnated for literally hundreds and hundreds of years. And normally there's quite a shorter distance between our lives. So the theory goes.
Mm.
And so that was why he found this modern life being thrown into it so jarring. The noise and the stimulation and the people and the technology, like he couldn't feel comfortable yet in this lifetime. And it may sound wacky and out there and all the things that we think when we hear, these kind of stories, but it absolutely made sense to me on this cellular level. It was like a missing piece of the jigsaw. And she, through me, gave both me and my son this healing where she imagined placing him onto my chest and wrapping us both in silver light so that even when he wasn't with me, because he had such separation anxiety, he felt close to me.
Wow.
And I can't even tell you, Amy, like from that day, everything changed. He's still my highly sensitive kid. He's still the biggest empath, but also the wisdom that comes out of this boy's brain. Like he is that healer. And I'm not saying that in this like my kid's so special way, but I see it in him.
Mm.
But it gave me permission to parent him in a completely different way, to stop comparing him to his sister, to stop trying to parent him like that, to stop thinking he was just this blank canvas of a kid that I'd birthed, to actually look back when he was crying or feeling a big feeling or overstimulated and think like, what could this be? He's not just trying to be difficult or inconvenient or, dramatic. What could this be? And from that day, like his allergies cleared up for a long time. Now they only come up when there's some kind of emotional turbulence. It's like a little barometer.
Mm-hmm.
His cough stopped really the next week. And me and him are now a real partnership. He will always need more care and love. He will always need like to be parented in a different way. It's just his soul. He's very like me. But it just changed everything. And that led me to start going, okay, if that's true of him and our family, what's true of others?
Mm.
And when I began putting my journalist hat on and researching past lives and children, it opened this whole new world. I was not the first parent looking at this with their kids. Kids around the world are coming out with past life memories that are linked to their fears and the knowledge they come out with. There's research being done, and it was just this, really exciting new world. And of course, led to the book. Here we are.
And what I love about this book, and of course it is like this with your background and your incredible research journalist brain, Amy, is everyone who's listening, this isn't, some random woo-woo collection of stories. I was really incredibly impressed with how much research and data and studies are included in this. And I think that that's what this needs. We need it to move out of this, hippie woo-woo spiritual idea to really ask what's going on with these children. It makes me emotional because my eldest daughter, I often say she came out of the womb scared. She arrived here scared and anxious. I remember them placing her on my chest and looking into these eyes. And the eyes were saying to me, like within seconds of meeting her, the eyes were saying, help me. It was just, and it wasn't until many, many years later when she really went through a huge mental health crisis. And I have full permission from her to talk about this, because one of her things is she wants us to be able to talk better about this when children go through this. She spent some time in hospital, and the psychiatrist that was working with her said to me, Amy, the world is just a really incredibly scary place for Scarlett. And I thought, yeah, I saw that when she was born, Amy. Like, it was so bizarre to, I totally understand what you mean. The world is just, she came here with something else first. I don't know how to describe it, but reading this book has helped me understand her a little bit more again. That there is something else here. The sounds, the noise, the worry, the heaviness of the planet. She is so worried about where we're heading. Like, there's this real sense of heaviness in her. And I know that a lot of us as mums see this in our kids.
Exactly. And we hear what they're saying to us, right? And again, this isn't about like, oh, my kid's so special, but this generation are different. They are special. They're incredibly empathetic and sensitive and eloquent and energetically mature. They're
Very.
picking up things when they walk through a crowded space or sit in a classroom or play crime, or when you have an argument with your partner. They are picking up things that I didn't as a kid, and I know like the generation before me didn't, and they're putting into words things they're learning about life and death and gender and sexuality and money and climate change. And it's so easy to dismiss them because they're just kids. And this book for me just provided such relief. For my, my little girl, when she was 3, she turned around and told me she chose to be born into lockdown. And I don't have to worry about her because she chose to be here now.
Wow.
And she is gutsy and spirited and difficult, and she is going to do something in the future. I have absolutely no doubt. And these sensitive kids who are scared, they are the healers of the world. Like, we know it. You know it with your daughter.
Yeah.
I know it with my son. I know it myself. I'm highly sensitive and empathetic. And I know it myself. Like, we're the ones creating the podcast, writing the books, making the changes. But what we need to do is, like, number 1, acknowledge it. Number 2, listen. And then teach them. Like, I loved learning through this book the practical ways I could help my little boy and all my kids in terms of how they protect their energy, how they control their intuition so they're not picking up other people's physical symptoms and emotional stuff too. Like when they come home from school with a stomach ache, to say to them, is this your stomach ache? Or was there a little boy in your class today with a stomach ache? Could that be his stomach ache? And if it's not mine, can I release it? Because I actually don't need to carry that story. And I do it myself now, and I do it with my kids. And so it's so far beyond just saying, oh, maybe my kid was, lived in ancient Egypt. It's about saying these kids are different. Instead of pushing against it, how can we work with it and realize they're here to teach us?
Yeah.
They're here to take away our fear of death, of time scarcity, when we're terrified of like, oh my goodness, what have I birthed my child into with the political landscape and climate change? They chose to be here, is what I've learned. They're built for it, but we still need to scaffold them emotionally to help them. Because like you said, the world is a scary place, especially for these kids.
I think it also is such a confirmation that the greatest thing we can do as the mothers of these children is work on ourselves too. I remember when she first started really struggling, like, 7, 8 years old even. My response was how I was raised. I was raised in a military family. It was suck it up, princess. Go to school anyway. I don't think I ever missed a day of school just because I wasn't feeling like it. I wasn't allowed. I didn't even really process any of that. You put your armor back on, and I was told, you're a tailor. You can do anything. And that worked for me to some extent. Some may question that, but it worked for me, I thought. And then along came these children. I've got 3 as well, and they've all got their special flavour of empathy and challenges. And so my immediate response was, suck it up, princess, go to school. Like, there's nothing to worry about. What are you worried about? You're fine. Do you have a temperature? Are you bleeding? Are you vomiting? Go. And I remember like dragging her into school for days and days, thinking that that was the right thing to do. And the school system telling me that's the right thing to do. And I think as parents of these children, I don't know, do you think that, you talk about soul contracts? And I feel like our part of the contract is to work on our own responses to their empathy and to their worries and their anxiety, because I tried doing it the old school way and it made it worse. It was really awful. So I've had to completely relearn my way of supporting her and them.
Yes. Actually, the third part of this book, which is reparenting yourself, is the most significant. Because the message of this book isn't like, take your kids to see a past life regressionist and put them into therapy. It's actually the opposite. It's number one, how working on ourselves and our past lives can flow down to our children, especially below the age of 7, when it's said that, we still share a chakra system, but also tapping into our own like ancestral inherited soul contracts and karma, clearing that so that then we can show up in the way that we need to for our kids. So the biggest work for me when I was the guinea pig for this book was clearing shame, not only from this life, but from previous lives. Clearing fear. I mean, I wouldn't have I believe I couldn't have even had my children if I hadn't had past life clearing myself. I didn't have a period for 7 years before my first daughter was born. And there's lots of reasons you can put that down to. I had an eating disorder in my past. I had trauma. But really medically, there was no reason. And then through my own therapy, I tapped into a past life memory linked to that, linked to my eating disorder, linked to my infertility. I cleared it and I dealt with the shame of it. And I went on to have 3 natural pregnancies, which was astounding to me. And I continue to really do the work to clear especially shame, to clear shame that has run through the women in my family, run through my mum, run through my grandmother, her mother. There's so much shame that we have inherited as women, not only from our past lives, but our parents, our grandparents, and their past lives. Like, it's all compounding. So does it stop with us? Do we pass it on? Like, we have the choice there.
Yeah. I don't know. Yes, we do have a choice, of course. But I also feel, and you would know more whether this is a bit more of a universal thing with these generation of children, they're not going to let me not clean this shit up. Like, honestly.
They call
like,
me out on the
to
daily.
Get her to take on and be the good girl that I was. I was going, and you know what? I was told very clearly that that's not going to work for her, even when she was a toddler. So I feel like they're so sensitive and empathetic and they need so much scaffolding, as you talk about, but also they will not change. Well, yes, not that I can see yet. They're such an incredibly brave, courageous generation that are making the whole world think differently. They just inspire me so much, this generation, but they're in a lot of pain.
So our role as parents is like right now, especially before teenage years, they do have that fight, that spirit. They're not going to change. They know their instincts, they know the gut feelings, and they trust them. But how it doesn't take much for that to change, for the world to tell them to change, for us to put them into a system that tells them to change. Like, we have to be their biggest advocates in helping them to continue to trust their instincts, because we all know in the moment that we stop trusting ours. So I'm not going to be the parent that tells my little boy, like, I don't believe you when he says he's scared, or tells them that they need to change to fit into a certain system. And like, we might get pushback for that, but I will believe my kids. when they come to me and tell me any fear, any belief, I will believe them, because that's my role, my biggest role, I think. And if that's all I do, then that's my soul contract ticked.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think it's also really interesting some of the conversations that are being had in certain pockets around the world around neurodiverse children. If you listen to some part of the media, we're overdiagnosing, it's because of technology, all of that. But I remember, again, in my own little journalistic rabbit hole around this for my children, I was really interested in some of the insight that maybe the neurodivergent brain is actually a brain adapting for what the future world needs. That blew my mind. Can you talk to us about?
Yes, I love this. I've been having so many conversations, probably like you have, with my female friends who are having late in life diagnoses of ADHD. And I look around and I see the similarities between all of them. Again, incredibly empathetic, intuitive, eloquent, all working within the spiritual space, many of them healers in different guises. And I'm speaking to them, and I have a good friend who's a spiritual healer who says the kids with ADHD, she says, access directly to higher dimensions.
Oh, I loved that in your book. So ADHD stands for
access directly to higher dimensions, that they are tuned in, tapped in to something that most of us, especially us elders, cannot tap into. And they have memories of previous lifetimes that we can't access. And again, and they even are tuned in to the future of what is coming. They have this big picture vision of like across timelines of what the world needs. And so, of course, their brains are trying to rewire, not only from where they've come from, but to get ready for where we need to go and where we need to take the world next. And again, when I'm looking at the kids around me who like fit the ADHD diagnosis, they are incredible kids. They are healing. They're the kids that when I sit with them or talk to them, they come out with things that make my jaw drop and completely change my perspective. And they have something about them that if we put aside, the labels we want to slap on them of being difficult or not fitting in, actually, they're the ones that are here to teach us and guide us. And they're the ones that are going to shake up the world and get us ready for what's next.
Yeah.
And I love that mindset shift because, again, it's taking away from different being wrong. Actually, we need different. The world is a mess. We need something to change and fast. And these kids' brains might be the ones that are ready for the next big shift. So, yeah, personally, again, that brought me huge relief for everyone around me and everyone who's facing a diagnosis like this. And I loved access directly to higher dimensions. Because again, in my female friends who with these new diagnoses of ADHD, like they're the ones I want to be around. They're the ones I go to for advice, or when I'm like, I need a new perspective on this, or what does this mean? They're the ones who are dropping the wisdom on me. And so I can't wait to see what the children do.
I want to come back to what you said about being our greatest role is to really be the advocate for these children in a world that might not be fully supportive already. Obviously, this is a podcast about matrescence and the experience of motherhood. And I know for myself, like I said, all three of my children have different but very challenging and unique ways of moving through this world. It could be my full-time job to advocate for them. I often say that if I was still in traditional media, if I still stayed down that path, I would have been sacked so many times by now. Because I had to delay the podcast today with you for an hour because I had to go get my daughter from school because she couldn't stay. Managing the appointments, the meltdowns, the regulation after school, it's enormous. And I think for this podcast, in this conversation, we really need to acknowledge that we as mothers can see their gifts and we will do anything to protect and support them. But it's a huge job too. It is a huge, even just practically. I don't know how many mothers in my community who have had to change work or change hours to be able to support one of their children through these things. Can we just acknowledge and reflect on the reality of parenting in this day and age with that?
Do you know the biggest shift around researching this book for that with me was my relationship with time? Like I've always felt like time's running out. I don't have enough time. Not only just like to get my kids ready for school, but for what I want to do with my life.
Yes.
And that's partly because I, came face to face with death quite young, with my dad's cancer and then my husband dying, but also like what's the world is telling us there's never enough time. You need to do everything when you're under 30, like 30 under 30, and then you have kids and we're being pulled with like, we are soul contract and what we want to achieve in this life, which isn't just raising kids, it's actually having an impact in our own way. And I've always felt like many people I hate those Instagram posts of you only have 18 summers with your kids. Like I just want to throw my phone out the nearest window. I wish people would stop sharing that meme. And that crunch of time and then trying to split my time between everything. And then, your kid's homesick and you lose a day. And for me, like this book really shifted my perspective with time because number one, I love the idea that I have multiple lifetimes with my kids. Aww. And I do believe that. Like when I put my kids to bed at night, I say, I love you in this lifetime and in every lifetime. And I feel that in every cell of my body that I will love them across multiple lifetimes together.
Wow.
And I think I've been with them before and I think I'll be with them again. And so just that is an incredible relief for me.
I love that.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. That really
and so many kids from the book have said to their mums, I was your mum before, in our last lifetime we did this. I'm sorry I had to die so soon in our previous life. I'm sorry I had to leave you. I always said I would come back. Like, man, you're killing me.
Exactly. Hang on. I just have to pull myself together.
And so much of the pressure and overwhelm we feel as mums, I think, is really a fear of death and loss and an ending. It's a fear of running out of time, whether it's, with what we want to achieve in our work or what we want to imprint on our kids. And if you take off this time pressure of like how many years we're going to have with them and think, maybe we get to do this again. Maybe I don't have to be perfect this time. Maybe we get to try again. Wow. And you know what? Actually, that's part of like the concept of reincarnation is that we come back to learn more and do better. So I will sign up to that again and again with my kids. I will keep coming back to learn more, to do better. Like I am all in with that. And so when I'm tucking them to bed thinking, oh God, like have I got time to write this book and promote this book and make a difference and also make my kids happy and teach them this and that? Like just taking a breath and thinking it's not only 60, 70 years, it's lifetimes that I have to do this with them. Made a huge, huge difference. Just with me and thinking of everything that I want to do. And you know what? They've got their soul contracts. I've got mine. Part of it's being their mum. Part of it for me, I feel, is writing this book and these conversations. We all knew what we were signing up for before coming into this life. We all knew we could handle it, right? We will handle it until we can't. That's when I've been going through the toughest points of my life, watching people die, watching so much sickness, thinking about what if I get sick myself, I've always known I will handle it until I can't, and then I'll be gone.
Wow.
And the same with my kids, they will handle it until they can't, and then they'll be free, and then they'll start over.
Oh, it honestly makes me cry so much. I've never seen it that way. I'm trying to be, stay steady and professional, but that is actually an incredible way to look at it and very freeing and very reassuring.
And I think with this book, skepticism, whatever, of course, I'm not telling anyone what to believe. I still don't know what I believe. And there's no hard evidence. There never will be. But I like to feel my way into my truth. And when I'm having these conversations, it feels so true to me. And this is the belief that will make me a better mother. Whether
Yes.
right or wrong, this book, this belief helps me to turn up better today and tomorrow.
I totally agree.
So,
Yes.
all hard evidence aside, this feels good for me. So,
Yes. And again, I'll reiterate that you do actually have some beautiful research and insights into the book. But I agree, at the end of the day, this is yet another way for us to come to this beautiful experience of parenting this generation with more openness and compassion for them and for ourselves. And also, I was actually teaching just in Mummerizing this morning that one of the biggest contributors to parental burnout, there was this huge study that came out of Belgium. One of the biggest contributors to parental burnout is this heavy responsibility a mother or a parent feels that it's up to them to make sure their kid's okay. It was that specific worry. It is up to me to get this right so they are okay in the future. And everything you're saying is kind of the anecdote to that,
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite strapline of the book, is that there's a huge relief when we realize as a parent that we don't need all the answers and that our children have more answers than we think they do.
Yeah. And what you said right at the beginning of the interview, you said when your son was born, I wrote it down, how can I make this child happy? And I have to be totally vulnerable and honest here. I struggle with that all the time, even just having, a nothing day at home with the kids on a Sunday. And I look over at my son who's, highly sort of 3,000 new ideas every hour, and he's created a new restaurant design, and he's, drawing a new power system for the planet. And I look over and I'm like, oh, I don't think he's been happy today. I don't think he's done enough. I don't think, I can recognize my own internal busy addiction. And I find it really hard, Amy, even after 17 years of parenting, to not be so attached to how they're feeling every day and think it's my responsibility. Of course, it is at some level, but it's not my response. In the end, I may not even be able to make sure they're happy this lifetime.
Yes.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard to accept, because all you want for these beautiful souls is to be happy.
Yes, exactly. And some people will have a heavier life than others. Like, we know those people.
Absolutely.
And that's part of what they signed up for, and they hopefully get to come and do it all again. But, when you have 3 kids, you look at them and you go, which of these will be happy? Which of these will be the ones that have the difficult life?
Oh.
But it's never just one thing either, right? Like, if you looked at my life on paper, it's been a whole lot of difficulties.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, even when I look at my sister, I was thinking this because part of the third part of the book, Reparenting Yourself, I had to realize that I was teaching my kids to suffer, but I wasn't teaching them how to celebrate. So I was giving them this toolkit based on my past of this is how you suffer. When you're challenged, this is what you do when you face adversity. But I wasn't arming them with any knowledge of how to be happy or how to celebrate or how to rest in joy. And I had to really, and I continue to do a lot of work to allow my nervous system to feel safe with happiness. And that's part of my soul work with them. And that's part of why they're my kids. Like my little girl, my oldest, she is just happy to her soul. And I've found that the most difficult at times, because I have felt like I am not worthy of being her mom, because I am not just naturally happy to my soul. I am the little big feeling kid at heart. And so part of our soul contract, mine of hers, is that she's lifting me up. And I had to stop pulling her down to my comfort level of kind of discomfort in life And instead, I'm rising up to her natural joy and optimism. And when you look at that, like we feel so much pressure to be the teacher.
Yes.
And to be the leader and to be the guide. But I don't know about you, but my kids have taught me like tenfold what I've ever taught them.
100%.
And that's the real hierarchical shift that I want to see with this book and hope the conversations start. Like, regardless of what your belief system is, it's like breaking down that hierarchy that we are older and wiser and really realizing these kids can teach us far more than we can teach them.
Oh, this has been incredible, beautiful. You've really cemented a lot of the things that I've been thinking about and rolling around in my mind. And I feel like there's this big exhale in me about, our role in our children's lives. And I just want to finish by asking you how you feel about putting this out into the world, a world that in our beautiful bubble, you and I, we're very similar. We curate who's around us and we make sure that people around us are open to our sometimes crazy ideas and fully listen to our rants. Well, maybe I just speak for myself there. But putting this out into the world and doing mainstream media and asking the world to take this seriously. How are you feeling about that?
It's quite surreal. I thought that, it's published by Hay House, who are spiritual. They love a little bit of wacky woo-woo. And I thought, I'll be doing the podcast in the spiritual space. That'll feel quite safe. That's fine. And then I think, funnily enough, the book launch was pushed back a year. And I was all huffy about it at the time. I had it all scheduled and I had it all figured out. It was pushed back a year for various reasons. And of course, it was totally meant to be. I think this was the only time it could have been launched. And the world is ready and quite desperate, to be honest. People are desperate for change and answers and where they're realizing old way isn't going to work.
Yes.
So hilariously, it's been picked up by mainstream media and people I never thought would cover it are covering it quite seriously, not in a kind of ha-ha way, in actually an interested way of wanting to learn more. So suddenly this little niche book that I thought I would quietly launch is now really taking off, which of course is incredible. But I am having to do quite a lot of work on my nervous system to actually hold space for it. Luckily, my husband is a massive skeptic. Which I think is always so wonderful. Sometimes I think, I wish I was with this, like yogi, spiritual hippie. And he is a hippie in his own way, but he's also a scientist, very grounded in logic. And so at least I feel like I've been testing this book every step of the way with the conversations with him and preparing for it. But I'm so happy it's kind of breaking out of the niche and into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And I do think every time that I've wobbled and wanted to kind of cancel the whole damn thing, I do keep coming back to, I think this is part of why I'm here. I think this is part of why my kids are here. Not that this is going to be like the rest of my life having this conversation, but I think I am here to be the springboard for these conversations. I always say as a journalist, I write where I'm led. And every time I try to micromanage my career or overthink it, I come back to that anchor sentence. I write where I'm led. And for whatever reason, my life led me here for now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I will get the comments and the pushback, and I'm fine for that. I feel like at the age of 41, I'm now at a space where I can actually handle it and hold it. And yeah, I wrote where I was led, and this is where I am.
And I think there's always that point in the zeitgeist, in the history of conversations like this, where someone needs to straddle the world of the woo-woo spiritual and the mainstream, and it needs to be somebody like you. I mean, in a way, your career has been leading. You have such credibility. You have such amazing journalistic background. The book is so grounded in so much of that these are the conversations that tip over into the other community.
And exactly. And I find it, I don't know how
do.
you go, but I I mean, I find some of the spiritual content quite tough to absorb, understand the jargon and the like. There's a certain way, certain healers and beautiful, really intelligent people in the spiritual space, but there's a certain way that they can write that is very us and them.
Yes.
You know my work.
So
I
true.
write in a very grounded way. I talk.
Yeah.
I always say to writers who I work with, write as if you're chatting to your mum on the phone. The book is very grounded. It's an awful lot of research in there, like you said. And I really try to write it in a very mainstream way whilst translating these quite big concepts from the spiritual space. So from the word go, I was saying this is a book for the bestseller list. This is not for just a little corner of the spiritual world.
Yes.
And so, I hope I nailed that, but we will see.
You sure did. And I want to say thank you for doing that, for making it accessible to the mainstream. Hopefully we can have conversations with our children's teachers. Hopefully this is something that opens up acknowledgement in that system that we're trying to change to support these children. So as one mama who is totally navigating this with 3 beautiful souls, thank you for bringing this to the mainstream so we can all do this better.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, beautiful. I will pop the details of how to get the book from Hay House in the show notes, and I'm sure Amy would love it if you reach out and let her know.
I would love that. Tell me all the wonderful things your kids say. That's what I want to hear. Message me all the wacky, wonderful mic drop things that your kids say. I'm always keen to hear that.
I didn't even mention this, but my sister said to my mum when she was about 3, I'm so glad I got you this time. My last mum was really mean and I picked you out and I chose you when she was 3.
It's amazing the messages when I put this out on socials.
There's so many.
We've all got one.
Yeah, you can't deny it. Thank you so much, beautiful, for everything that you do.
My pleasure.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, as always, for being a part of our global matrescence community. Please take a moment and make sure you're subscribed to this podcast in your podcast player so you can always be notified of our next episode. And if you would like to work with a coach on your own experience of matrescence, please go to mamarising.net and explore our directory of phenomenal coaches, workshop leaders, space holders and facilitators around the globe. You can also explore our Global Matrescence Foundation and consider donating so a mama in need can access the support of one of our coaches and still ensure that our coaches receive the income and support they need so they can continue to work in this way. And finally, if you would like to be a coach, a facilitator and a matrescence activist in your own community, jump on our waitlist for our next intake of the Mama Rising Facilitator Training at mamarising.net. Thank you for being here and being part of this movement. Until next week, bye.